Hey everybody, today I am talking about hex signs because a reader asked me to, and because I talk about them a little bit in my book, Legacy of the Witch, which is a metaphysical mystery and one of the books in my mystery school series. This is a hex sign, or, well, a small example. They get bigger, lots bigger, because they go on the side of barns in Pennsylvania Dutch country. The term hex sign was first mentioned in print in 1924 in a book called Pennsylvania Beautiful. And this was one of a series of travel books written by the same author. The writer described these barn decorations and referred to them as hexaphus, meaning witchfoot. And he called them this based on an interview with a single farmer and suggested that these designs were used to ward off evil, introducing the term hex into the context of Pennsylvania Dutch barn art. For the early Pennsylvania farmers, demons, ghosts, monsters in the woods, they weren't a problem. It was the hexen, the witches, that the farmers were nervous about. But to their credit, Pennsylvania did not execute or imprison any accused witches like nearby Massachusetts did. Anyways, back to the hex signs. You can probably guess what happened after this book came out. 20th century hex sign producers ran with the idea of hex signs being magic charms because, I mean, what great marketing. Each design came with a different meaning for good luck, love, or protection. These distal finks or birds are for good luck and good fortune. For some reason, my family has a lot of the distal finks in our collection, and I don't have any of the others. But there are lots of different styles of Pennsylvania Dutch hex signs. You can find them online, Google them, look them up. But are they magic? Were they designed to bring good luck and repel evil? The old Penn Dutch folk insist the signs are just for nice. In other words, they're just decorative. And modern Pennsylvania Dutch scholars have suggested that our travel writer was mistaken. Some think he may have just misheard and thought the farmer was saying hexaphus when he really said zexaphus, which would mean a six-pointed star shape, which is very typical in Pennsylvania Dutch signs. And alternately, the writer may have been pointing at a hex sign and the farmer thought he was pointing at something else, because a hexaphus, or a witch's foot, is a real thing. It's a charm from the Pennsylvania Dutch Brauerei tradition. A hexaphus is traditionally made with a piece of paper with protective words or symbols or Bible verses on it, but a hexaphus can also be a carved wooden object. Confusing things even more, one of the most popular hex sign designs, which again, unfortunately, I don't have on me, is a symbol from sacred geometry, the seed of life. This is an eight-pointed star, which is the foundational component of the flower of life from sacred geometry. And hex signs, six-pointed stars, otherwise known as rosettes, or the 12-pointed stars, also seem kind of sacred geometry-esque because they're very symmetrical. But could hex signs be protective charms despite what the experts say? In my book, Legacy of the Witch, my heroine paints some hex signs and she infuses her magic into it. And in magical theory, anything you create with proper magical intent can be magical. Now, I don't think many of the hex sign producers were doing that. Certainly not Zook, which was the biggest hex sign producer. These were mass produced. They're on cheap, I think it's called fiberboard. They're really meant for hanging inside houses. My family hung this outside, but it was in a protected area, so it wasn't getting a lot of wind or rain. Real hex signs, as I said, they go on the side of barns, so they need to be durable. And I don't know if they were created with magical intent or not. But could hex signs be magical just because so many people believe they're magical? I think this is possible. In the Hampton Court Palace experiments in 2000 and the Southbridge Vaults experiments in 2003, researchers took a group of people and they sent them through these reputedly paranormal places. In the Southbridge Vaults, they told the subjects they were part of a study on paranormal experiences, and the vaults were reputed to be haunted. Though they didn't give the subjects any specific details about expected phenomena or what parts of the vaults were haunted. So the subjects go through the vaults, they go through Hampton Court Palace, and of course, they experience all sorts of spooky, haunted things, which they then reported to the researchers. The researchers thought, aha, this demonstrates the power of suggestion. But the weird thing was, afterwards, when normal tourists who knew nothing about these experiments afterwards began going through these places, they began reporting the same types of experiences in the same places that the research subjects had reported them. So, what if something else is going on? Because we're creatures of flesh, but we are also creatures of energy. What if belief is something that is energetically contagious? Or what if belief in something can actually create that thing? It's getting harder to find hex signs today if you go to Pennsylvania Dutch country. They have fallen out of fashion in favor of barn stars and quilts painted on the side of barns. The biggest mass producer of hex signs, Zook, went out of business during COVID, which, even though the signs were cheap and mass produced, it's kind of sad that he's gone. But you can find some very nice quality signs on Etsy. So there you have it. A very short and slightly confused history of hex signs. I can't say if they're magic or not, but they're pretty cool. And if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe.